Welcome to the South Defense.
For years, we've all been talking about the future of warfare. This idea of advanced autonomous machines operating deep inside enemy airspace. Well, today, that future just got a lot more real, and it's flying under a Chinese flag.
It really is a significant moment.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We're diving into a huge development in global defense, the confirmed first flight of China's CH-7 stealth drone.
The Unmanned Combat Aerial Vehicle, or UCAV.
Exactly. Our source material here is a defense intelligence report, and it's confirming the CH-7 has moved into an active flight test phase. This is all based on this one key photograph taken on November 12, 2025.
And we have to be clear, this isn't a mock-up at an air show.
No, this is not a render. It's a massive, confirmed military asset, and it is in the air.
Right. And what's so fascinating is that this single photo, it kind of upends years of planning assumptions for a lot of people.
So what's our mission here for you, the listener?
Our mission is to synthesize the whole story, not just the specs of the machine, but its quiet, very methodical development, and crucially, to analyze the strategic challenge it poses.
You mentioned this idea of intelligentized warfare.
Yes, the CH-7 is a central piece in that doctrine. It's all about highly sophisticated, survivable networks of sensors and weapons. We need to figure out exactly how this thing fits into that network.
So let's start with the visual proof, the sheer scale of it. Because the aircraft that flew in 2025 is just, it's way bigger than what they first showed.
Oh, massively bigger. I mean, you remember the model from the 2018 Zhuhai air show?
I do. A beautiful, pure, tailless design, a real showpiece from KSC, the China Aerospace Science and Technology Corporation, part of their whole Rainbow drone family.
Right.
But the specs back then, what were they? It was about 10 meters long, a 22-meter wingspan, something like 15 hours of endurance.
Pretty standard stuff for the time, relatively speaking. But by 2022, the whole ambition for the project had ballooned.
Ballooned is right. The airframe we're tracking now has a wingspan estimated at 26 meters.
26. I mean, to give you a sense of scale, that's roughly the length of a Boeing 737's wing. It's huge.
So that increased size must translate directly into performance.
It does. It absolutely defines its role. The service ceiling is up to 15 kilometers, and its maximum takeoff weight is now in the 10-ton class.
And a 10-ton weight? That tells us a couple of things immediately, right?
Two big things. One, a massive internal fuel capacity for what we call HALE, high-altitude long endurance. And two, a very substantial internal payload.
So that's not just for spying?
No, not at all. It's now positioned as a deep penetration stealth strike and ISR platform, an intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance asset that can also fight.
Which obviously makes it a much bigger problem for any potential adversary. But let's zoom in on the airframe itself for a second. There's a detail in the photo that intelligence reports are all over.
Fins.
The two canted vertical fins on the back. Now, for a stealth aircraft, adding fins seems counterintuitive. Why is that such an important strategic indicator?
Because it's the most revealing clue about where they are in the development process.
Okay.
Those vertical stabilizers, they're almost certainly not permanent. They dramatically increase the radar cross-section, which, it kind of defeats the whole purpose of a stealthy flying wing.
So they're just on there for testing.
Exactly. They are temporary test configurations. Look, historically, the U.S. flying wing programs, they struggled immensely with yaw control. It is an incredibly difficult engineering challenge to solve without a tail.
So by adding these temporary fins,
the engineers can stabilize the basic flight envelope first. They can just focus on aerodynamics, the engine, the structure, get it flying safely.
And then take them off later.
Once they've mastered that basic flight testing, they'll likely remove the fins. That'll be the signal that they're moving on to the really complex, software-driven flight control laws needed for the pure, tailless, much stealthier configuration.
So it tells us they're being methodical, patient.
Methodical and cautious. They're prioritizing successful testing over achieving perfect stealth on day one.
Now here's where it gets really interesting for me. The fundamental design. Even with those fins tacked on for now, the core shape, it puts this UCAV squarely in the same category as the high-end Western demonstrators.
Oh, absolutely. You're talking about things like the old US X-47B, the secretive RQ-180, the European Neuron project.
Yeah. So what are the features that scream survivable and stealthy?
Well, first you have that classic blended wing body. Smooth, curved, designed to just scatter radar waves. Then, and this is crucial, the dorsal intake. The air inlet is on top.
hiding the engine face from ground radar.
Exactly. And then you look at the back, and the exhaust is flattened. That's to reduce the infrared signature, making it harder for heat-seeking sensors to lock on. Every single piece is about deep penetration.
And if it penetrates, it has to strike.
It has to. All the imagery we've ever seen implies a large internal weapons bay. There are no external hard points to hang bombs or missiles because that would ruin the stealth.
So it's all about stealth.
The commitment is absolute.
Yeah.
And that bay is sized for standoff precision munitions, anti-radiation missiles. Basically, weapons designed to take out enemy radar and command centers.
Which defines its core role, the so-called sensor shooter.
A sensor shooter, exactly. Its job is twofold. First, high-altitude, deep penetration ISR. That means hoovering up enemy radar signals, identifying high-value targets like warships or air defense batteries.
But hold on, doesn't China already have massive surveillance fleets? They have the BZK-005 and others. Given how expensive the CH-7 must be, what's the specific gap it's filling? Isn't it a bit redundant?
That's the essential question, and the answer is survivability.
Okay.
Their current surveillance fleet, it just can't operate for long inside a heavily defended zone. They're too slow, too visible on radar. The CH-7 is designed to fly inside that defended airspace, maybe over 2,000 kilometers in, and just linger for hours.
Quietly mapping everything out.
Mapping the precise locations of mobile missile launchers, command posts, things that move. So its job isn't general surveillance, it's about precise, survivable target acquisition.
So it either attacks the target itself?
Or maybe more importantly, it cues other strike assets.
Yeah.
It sends confirmed low-latency targeting data to anti-ship missiles or to manned fighters like the J-20. It becomes this critical, hard-to-kill data node in their kill chain.
That makes a lot more sense. Let's talk about the timeline then, because this wasn't an overnight success. It's really a lesson in patience and determination.
It really is. It shows just how difficult this kind of technology is to master.
We can trace it all the way back to that 2018 mock-up. Back then, CSC was projecting a maiden flight for 2019, maybe early production in the mid-2020s.
And those dates came and went.
They did. The program went completely quiet for years. So quiet that many Western analysts thought, maybe they'd hit a wall, a technical hurdle they couldn't overcome with the flight control software.
And that silence was, in a way, the most telling part. They didn't scrap it.
No, instead they came back in 2022, and not with the same model. It was refined. It had design changes, sharper wingtips, different control surfaces.
And most importantly, they confirmed the bigger size and weight.
Yeah.
It showed they were patiently solving the hard engineering problems, not just giving up.
And that patience paid off. Late 2024, we started seeing unofficial videos, satellite images, a full-scale CH-7 in that yellow primer paint conducting taxi runs.
Which is the final step before you fly.
The absolute final step, and then bam, November 2025, the photo of it in the air. This confirms the shift to a structured flight test program. It's not a rumor anymore.
It's a signal that years of quiet, systematic work have produced a real, deployable asset.
So now we have to connect this to the bigger picture. What are the strategic implications here?
The implications are profound. The CH-7 is engineered to plug a huge hole in the PLA's strategy, especially for their anti-accessory denial, or A2AD, capabilities in the Western Pacific.
So how does it fit in with their other assets?
You have to think of it in layers. It's designed to fly above the slower surveillance drones and to work alongside the smaller, faster GJ-11 Sharp Sword attack drone.
And we've seen the GJ-11 working with the J-20 stealth fighter.
Right, in a sort of loyal wingman concept. The CH-7, with its incredible endurance, becomes the strategic ISR node. It lingers on the edge of the battle, mapping everything and then feeding that target data into those high-speed J-20 and GJ-11 strike tactics.
So it's the brain of the operation. This is what they mean by intelligentized warfare.
Precisely. You're creating this comprehensive, survivable network that doesn't just rely on expensive manned aircraft. If you want to run a major air campaign, you have to blind the enemy first.
And a CH-7 flying at 15 kilometers is a very, very hard target to hit.
An incredibly difficult target.
Yeah.
It's the perfect survivable node to manage that network and make sure every weapon has accurate, real-time data. It's achieving air denial through information dominance.
Which brings us to the elephant in the room, the U.S. comparison. The U.S. pioneered this stuff with aircraft like the X-47B, but those programs were often shelved.
They were, often downgraded to just testbeds.
So what does China's push to actually operationalize a big drone like this tell us about their timeline versus, say, the U.S. fielding its next-generation collaborative combat aircraft?
It tells us China prioritized fielding a real capability now over waiting for perfection later. The U.S. strategy is all about these advanced CCAs flying with 6th-gen fighters. But that's still years away.
Still in development.
Right. China is closing that gap fast by moving the CH-7 from testing to production readiness. They're going to have a robust, survivable, large-scale strike and ISR drone ready to go far sooner than many analysts predicted.
And what specific threats in the Western Pacific is it built to handle?
I mean, it is perfectly tailored for A2AD against U.S. and allied power. Imagine a 10-ton stealth drone loitering over the Philippine Sea. It could maintain persistent tracking of high-value assets that aren't stealthy, like refueling tankers or the E-2 Hawkeye surveillance plane.
The things a carrier group can't operate without.
The critical enablers. And it feeds that targeting data back to their anti-ship missiles, the so-called carrier killers like the DF-21. It takes the risk away from the pilot and makes their long-range missiles infinitely more effective. This completely changes the PLA's risk calculation.
So, wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, our listener, who's tracking these developments? The flight of the CH-7, it's a definitive signal.
It is. It's a signal of China's commitment to scaling up survivable long-range intelligence and strike capabilities. This isn't a possibility anymore. It's an active, funded operational program.
Aimed at shifting the military balance in the Indo-Pacific.
Absolutely. And so the key indicators to watch for now will be, first, prototypes with production serial numbers on them. That means mass manufacturing. Second, watch where they get deployed. If you see them at coastal bases or on the high-altitude plateaus, those are spots for high-value recon assets.
And finally,
watch for it in exercises. When you see it operating alongside the GJ-11, the J-20, that's the final signal. That means it's fully integrated into the PLA kill chain.
a phenomenal deep dive. This is a patient, determined, and now a very real technological leap.
It certainly is.
Okay, a final provocative thought for you to consider. We already know that Chinese missile inventories put huge pressure on forward-deployed U.S. forces and bases. So how does integrating a survivable, stealthy HALE drone like the CH-7 fundamentally reshape the opening geometry of any potential major air campaign in that region? This isn't just a new plane, it's a new, enduring strategic challenge that demands immediate attention. Thanks for joining us for the deep dive.
Don't forget to hit subscribe if you want to stay ahead of the biggest shifts in aerospace, geopolitics, and defense innovation.